Hello, welcome back to my channel and a special welcome if you're new here. My name is Jen and this is Jen Clayton Beauty. We do everything beauty and makeup and that includes new eyeshadow palettes. I am so excited about this new release from one of my very favorite indie brands, Nomad Cosmetics. We have not one, not two, but three new palettes from the Nomad Air collection from Nomad Cosmetics. I am excited about these little 6-pan palettes. They usually put out larger palettes. They did bring out a little 6-pan palette in the original Nomad Air collection a while ago. I actually do have a video here on my channel reviewing that collection. I will link it for you. So I'm actually really excited to see 3 more 6-pan palettes from 3 more amazing destinations. If you didn't know, Nomad Cosmetics is a destination indie brand. So all of their palettes are themed after a wonderful, beautiful travel destination. And we have 3 in this little collection. Now we did receive a card with the collection that talks a little bit about each of the palettes. So since we have 3 palettes, we're going to do 3 looks, 1 look with each palette. But before we jump into palette number 1, look number 1, if you're excited to see the brand new 3 palette collection from Nomad, give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not, turn your bell on because I upload lots and lots of new videos every single week. Down in the description box, I will link Nomad. I do have a discount, so I'll put that discount information down below for you, as well as my favorite beauty subscription boxes. All of the other makeup that I'm wearing in today's video, if you're interested in shopping this look, discounts to my favorite indie brands, and come follow me on TikTok for more beauty and makeup. So let's dive into the 3 new palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. So the first thing I want to do is read to you about each of the palettes. I'm going to insert close-up swatches of each of the palettes, and then we will do 3 consecutive looks. While I'm doing those looks, I'll let you know which palette I'm using. So palette number 1 is the new Nomad Air Canadian Rockies palette. The inspiration for this palette is mountain calling. Take a hike, brave the bears, and find your peak in the glorious Canadian Rockies. With fresh air, pristine lakes, and moose crossings all over, let's see what adventure awaits. The palette is full of rich pine greens and vibrant glacier lake blues combined with lighter hues of nature's woods and mountains. 4 blendable mattes and 2 shimmers in the Canadian Rockies palette. Next up is the Oslo Gardermoen OSL travel palette. I may not be saying that correctly. The inspiration for this was Nordic cool. Explore the capital of democratic design, from its practical and stylish fashion to the functional and striking architecture as we head to the trendy and happening Oslo. The palette is cool toned neutrals, a mix of shimmery silver and metallic dusty pink with cool taupe and grayish for natural and minimal cool toned looks. 4 soft mattes in this one and 2 glistening shimmers. And then lastly, we have Abu Dhabi Zayed O travel palette. The inspiration is Desert Oasis. From the colors of the souks and smells of the spice market to the meditative garden hour that enfolds the rising dunes and endless sands, join us as we experience magical Abu Dhabi. The palette is warm neutrals, a collection of colors from rich spices and desert sands to sunset hues of the golden hour on the dunes. Again, 4 mattes and 2 shimmers. All 3 of these palettes are beautiful. I love that we have a warm tone neutral, we have a cool tone neutral, and then we have a colorful palette. So there's literally something for everybody. Since I live in Arizona and I'm feeling the desert vibes today, let's go ahead and start with the Abu Dhabi palette, which is the warm toned neutrals. Such a beautiful palette. So let me zoom you in and let's get started. So as always, I'm going to prime my eyes with my MAC Paint Pot and Painterly. This is my go-to eyeshadow primer. I do always use an eyeshadow primer. It just keeps my shadow in place all day, prevents creasing, and really brings out the true opacity of the mattes and the sparkle of the shimmers. So I just tap that in. I do not set my eye primer. You can set it with powder. I just choose not. I just typically don't. So excited for this palette. It's so beautiful. My goal is to use all of the shades. So we're going to start with this taupey tanny light matte, and it's called Souks and Bazaars. And I'm going to tap that off and use that as my transition shade. This is pretty close to my actual eyeshadow primer. So what this is going to do is just help set the primer and get a nice base going for those deeper mattes. If you had a little bit deeper skin tone, this would show up beautifully on the eyes, and it is actually applying really, really nicely. And like I said, just as a good base for the mattes. Then I'm going to go in to the mid-tone matte called Rising Dunes. I do love that Nomad embossed all of the pans. They do such a great job with pan embossing, color stories, and packaging. And I'm going to put that in my crease and pull it just a little bit above my crease. I do have very slightly hooded eyes, so I do want to be able to see this shade when my eyes are open. I really like this. It's kind of a grungy peach, and we love a good grungy peach. This is going on really nicely, so buttery soft, and is just blending seamlessly. Next, I'm going into the deeper matte called Endless Sands. I'm going to pick that up pretty lightly on my fluffy brush. It is a little bit deeper matte, and I'm going to put that right in my crease. I am not going to bring this above my crease. I want the other shade to kind of poke out above this. I'm mainly using this shade just to deepen up the crease itself. I really like this shade. It's kind of a burnt orangey red, very warm, very beautiful. Now these mattes are blending beautifully, seamlessly. Look at how nice those blended together. That's 3 mattes layered on each other, and it's perfection. And then to deepen up my outer corner, add some depth on a little bit more dense, flatter brush. I'm going to pick up this deep shade in the palette, the final matte, called Spice Market. And I'm going to pop that in my outer portion of my eye, again, just to deepen that up and add a little bit of depth. This is definitely my favorite matte in the palette. I really, really like this color. Again, it's leaning towards terracotta, which is what all of the mattes in the palette are, but I love the deeper, darker brown base to this matte. It is just really pretty, very unique as far as a brown leaning matte goes. And wow, is it pigmented and opaque and layering just absolutely like a dream over those other mattes. Wow, I'm impressed for sure. I'm going to just lightly blend the edges with my fluffy brush, no added shadow. As always, I'm going to use my NYX glitter primer, pop a little bit of that on my lids, and then let's test out the 2 beautiful shimmers in this palette. As always, I'm going to apply 1 shimmer with my finger, 1 with a brush, so we can test out application of these shimmers. I'm going to first pick up the brown leaning shimmer called Desert Oasis. Isn't that pretty? It's kind of got that copper look to it, so buttery soft. And I'm going to apply that over my entire lid. Wow. I really, 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 really like this shimmer. It is applying perfectly. It is sparkly. It is opaque. Wow. Like I said, Nomad is one of my favorite indie brands, and this is why. I mean, look at how beautiful that shimmer is. And then I'm going to pick up kind of the pinky leaning shimmer called Golden Hour, and I'm going to apply that right on the inner portion of my lid, and use that basically as an inner corner highlight as well. Now this shade, I really, really like this. It's a very, very nice addition to the palette because it is a little bit more pink leaning, a little bit more mauve-y, but it pairs beautifully with the kind of mauve-y leaning matte. Ooh, I really, really like those 2 shimmer shades. I am going to pick up that mauve-y leaning matte called Endless Oasis and buff that on my lower lash line. And then right on top of that, the shade Desert Oasis, which was the first matte that the first shimmer we used all over the lid, and just buff that on top. We know I love a good shimmery lower lash line. Using that fluffy brush, 1 final blend, no added shadow. And there is the warm toned Obby Dobby neutral look. Let me go ahead and do liner and mascara do something with my hair for the day, and I'll be back to show you the final look with the first Nomad Air Abu Dhabi palette. So here's the final look with the Nomad Air Abu Dhabi palette. And again, that is the warm toned neutral palette. I think my look turned out beautiful. These are colors that I typically gravitate towards. I can pull off cool tones and warm tones, and I honestly love them both, but this color story is very easy to use. I love that there's 4 mattes and 2 shimmers. I will go over all of my final thoughts on all 3 palettes at the end of the video, but let's go ahead and jump into palette number 2, look number 2. So today we're going to do a look with the Canadian Rockies palette. This is the one that I'm most excited about because this is the colorful palette in the collection. I love the packaging. Actually, I like the packaging of this entire collection, and I just love this kind of teal green color story. It is my girls' night tonight with my workout group. We're going to a theater, and I'm going to wear kind of a dress similar to this matte right here from Buff Bunny collection. It's a teal dress, so I think that this palette is going to be perfect for tonight. And I'm going to do a simplified version of a halo eye. A halo eye can be pretty challenging, so I'm going to show you how I do it to make it a little easier. So let's get started on a look with the Canadian Rockies. As always, I'm going to prime my eyes with my MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. So I'm going to pick up this teal shade called Find Your Peak. This is such a beautiful, beautiful matte in this palette. Actually, all of the mattes in this palette are really nice. And I'm actually going to apply that on the inner portion of my eye and the outer portion of my eye, leaving the middle completely open. So I'm going to tap that on the inner corner, and I'm actually going to pull that onto the lid a little bit as well, and then bring that up, and then go to the outer portion, apply and pull that up as well. Again, leaving the complete center of my eye open. Isn't that shade beautiful? I mean, absolutely pigmented and beautiful. Oh, I love it. And then I'm going to repeat that on my other eye. And I'm going to diffuse that out, blend that out just a little bit with this light shade called Moose Crossing, picking that up on a fluffy brush. And again, just kind of buffing those edges, just making it a little bit more diffused. And then with my NYX glitter glue, I'm actually going to tap that on my lid in the center and up above. So all of that open space that there is no matte shadow, go ahead and tap on your NYX glitter glue. Then I'm going to pick up this shimmer shade called River Rafting. It's so absolutely beautiful. I'm picking that up on my finger, and I'm going to tap that on my lid, and I'm going to fill in all of the open space that we applied that NYX glitter glue with that shade River Rafting. And then I'm going to actually pick that up with a pencil brush to do that open area of my crease. Then I'm going to pick up the other shimmer called Mountain Calling. Oh, it's such a pretty green shimmer. And I'm going to just pop that in the outer corner and the inner corner, just to give a little bit more of that two-toned halo eye. And then for the lower lash line, I'm picking up the deep green in the palette called Take a Hike, and I'm going to buff that on the lower lash line. And then picking up that shimmer again, River Rafting, I'm going to buff that on top. Now we don't have a good inner corner highlight in this palette because there are the only 2 shimmers are these 2 here, which are a little bit too deep for an inner corner highlight. So I'm going to use my Flexitarian in my ColourPop Flexitarian and use that as my inner corner. It's a go-to inner corner brow bone highlight if you don't have one that you like in your palette. And then taking my big fluffy brush, no added shadow, I'm going to blend those edges really, really well. Let me go ahead and do a liner, mascara, and some lashes, and I'll be back to show you the final look with the Nomad Cosmetics Canadian Rockies palette. So here's the completed look using the Nomad Cosmetics Canadian Rockies palette. I'm going to do a little something with my hair a little later today before I head out tonight. But oh my goodness, do I love my eye look. It is all the teal dreams that I wanted. I really like this palette. We actually used every shade in here except for this top kind of green leaning matte. I didn't use that, but I used everything else. performed beautifully. Really, really loved the mattes and the shimmers in the palette. And lastly, we're going to do a look with the third palette in the new Nomad Air collection. This is the Oslo Garden Moen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. This is the more neutral, cool toned palette. I really, really like this palette. I love a good cool toned color story, and I like that we have a warm tone neutral, a colorful palette, and a cool tone neutral. So as always, I'm going to try to use all of the shades in the palette, but first and foremost, let's prime my eyes with my MAC Paint Pot and Painterly. As always, I'll have the MAC Paint Pot linked in all of the other makeup that I'm using in the description box. So we're going to start with the lightest matte in the palette. It's kind of a bone colored matte called Minimal, and I'm just going to buff that all over my lid, and that's going to set my eye primer and give me a base for my shadow. I actually really like that. It added a little bit of brightness to my lid. Then I'm going to go in with the next deeper shade. It's a deeper taupey color called Practical, and I'm going to buff that into my crease and a little bit above my crease, again, because I do have slightly hooded eyes. That way it kind of pops out above when my eyes are open. And this is a really pretty color. It's more of a gray, more of a cool toned gray, but I really like it. It's really beautiful. And laying down that shade Minimal first all over the lid is just making this pop. Then Natural, which is a little bit more brown leaning, a beautiful lighter cool tone brown. I'm going to pop that right in my crease and even bring that down a little bit on my lid. I'm staying right in the crease so that we can see that beautiful cool toned gray Practical right above the crease shade. Really like this too. It's definitely a little bit more gray leaning, so it's pairing beautifully with Practical. I'm wondering if these shades would look different if we didn't lay down this kind of bone color first. I'm definitely going to try that the next time I use this palette, but I really love how these are layering. They're very pigmented and they are applying beautifully on top of each other. And then as always, to deepen up the outer corner, add some depth, I'm using the darkest matte in the palette called Functional, and I'm going to just pack that on the outer corner. So beautiful. I mean, this shade is layering on 3 other mattes, and look how beautiful that is. It's perfection. I'm really, really loving this. I'm loving that in the pan, it's leaning a little more brown, but on the eyes, it's a cool tone gray. And like I said, that may be because of this bone shade that we applied first, but I'm not mad about it at all. I'm loving it. As always, I'm going to apply some NYX glitter primer, glitter glue to my lids, and then we have 2 absolutely beautiful shimmers to try out. So we have this shimmer shade called Nordic Cool, which is a silver. I'm so excited for that. And then we have a little bit more of a taupey shade. So I'm going to pick up Nordic Cool. Look how beautiful that is. It's silver taupe. I mean, it's very beautiful. And we're actually going to apply that to the outer 3/4 of my lid. And we're going to reserve that inner portion of my lid for the other shimmer. And this one I'm using my finger, and we'll test out the other shimmer with a brush. But that is absolutely amazing. Oh, wow. Wow, 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 is that pretty. It is silver, but it's also goldy taupe. It's very unique. It's a very unique shimmer. I really like it. I am beyond impressed with this palette so far. So we're going to pick up the final shade in the palette. That means we've used all 6 shades on a pencil brush. It's called Democratic Design. And we're actually going to pop that on the inner portion of our lid. Wow, this is so pretty. This is a beautiful, cool tone taupe shimmer, and it looks so nice next to that silvery shade. I'm even going to add a little bit more of this and use that as my inner corner highlight. Really, really love these 2 shimmer shades. Now going back into Functional, which was that deepest matte in the palette, I'm actually going to buff that right on my lower lash line. I'm staying really close to my lash line, similar to where I would put a liner. And then Nordic Cool, that first shimmer that's all over the lid, the outer shimmer, we're going to buff that right on top. And then picking up my fluffy brush, no added shadow, one final blend. Let me go ahead and do a liner, mascara, a lippy, do something with my hair, and I'll be back to share my final thoughts on all 3 of the new Nomad Air palettes. So here is the final look with the 3rd Nomad Air collection, the OSL Airport. Let's talk about this one first since this is what is on my eyes. I love this. To be honest with you, this is my favorite palette out of the 3. I actually love all 3 of these. The formula is incredible on all of them. The color stories are beautiful. There's something for everyone. Way to go, Nomad. But this I really love. I love my eye look. I'm really getting into more cool tones. I definitely am a warm tone person. My skin tone pairs really well with warm tones, but I'm really loving cool tones on me as well. And I'm grateful that I can wear both, but I think this is absolutely adorable, beautiful. Everything about it is perfection. I can see myself reaching for this a lot. And then the YXC, which is our colorful palette. I got so many compliments on my eye look that day, the day that I wore this. I actually had my girls' night for my workout group, and all of the girls were like, oh my gosh, I love your eyeshadow. It matches your dress. It's beautiful. And I really like this palette as well. To me, this is pretty monochromatic. I mean, the mattes are different shades of bluey teal green, but on the eyes, it's pretty monochromatic, which I actually really like. The 2 shimmers in this palette are beautiful. I do wish there was a little bit lighter shimmer. I did have to go in with a different inner corner highlight because there's just not one in this palette like there is in this one. But overall, I love this palette as well. And it's another one I can see myself reaching for a lot. And last but not least, the first palette we tried, the warm toned palette, the AUH Airport. This palette I really like as well. Similar to this palette, there isn't a shimmer shade that's light enough for an inner corner highlight. I understand that they can't always do that in a 6-pan palette, but I just usually go in with a highlighter. That's a great way to add an inner corner highlighter, brow bone highlight if your palette doesn't have it. But I really like this color story as well. It's very warm, it's very earthy, it's very brick red, brown. It's perfect for the desert, which is where I live. So this definitely speaks the vibe of the desert. I actually loved my look with all 3 palettes, and these, I love how different these are. They're different undertones. We have neutral, we have cool tone, we have colorful. They did a really fantastic job with this collection, and these are the perfect size for travel. These will be go-tos for me for traveling. Depending on the type of look that I want to do, I may bring all 3 of them. This is as much space as all 3 palettes will take up. The formula, the quality is the amazing Nomad Cosmetics, one of my favorite indie brands. This is a fantastic release from them. It definitely has something for everyone, and I love all 3 palettes. So I will go ahead and put all of the information here on the screen for you. I also have a 10% discount for Nomad. I will link it down below for you, but this is definitely a collection that they slayed, and I'm excited about all 3 palettes, which says a lot from the brand. So again, I'll link Nomad down below for you, as well as my favorite beauty subscription boxes, all of the other makeup that I've been wearing in these 3 videos, discounts to my favorite indie brands, including Nomad Cosmetics, and come join me on TikTok for more beauty and makeup. This is a collection I would definitely get your hands on.